Right, I have also breakfast for my panelists here. I want just to introduce them, but I promise you it is no, or any delicacy from cats is not actually within that particular breakfast. We have with us Boni Khalwale, who is the deputy chair of, he's actually the deputy chair of Ford Kenya and a former senator of Kakamega. Also, we do have with us Eseli Simiyu. Eseli Simiyu is the General Secretary of Ford Kenya and also Member of Parliament from Tongaren. We do have with us as well Jakoyo Midiwo. Jakoyo Midiwo is the former Member of Parliament from Gem, and also we do have with us Alfred Keter, who is a Member of Parliament from Nandi Hills, and also Senator Kimani Wamatangi with us this morning. Today we tackle the issue of the cartels in the country, especially when it comes to sugar. We want to delve deep and also try and see what is the genesis of all this that is actually happening in the country right now. And people are wondering, yes, is our sugar laced with mercury? Is our sugar laced also with heavy metals, copper, and all that jazz as well? So allow us to just continue with the discussion with our panelists this morning. Let's just begin with Alfred Keter. Good morning, good to see you.
Morning.
Yes, when it comes to corruption, just generally to just lay the groundwork for our discussion this morning, do you think we are winning or we are losing?
For the way we've started, I think we're winning because I've seen most government officials panicking. Most of them, if you realize of late, most people are really panicking about the lifestyle audit, and then we've seen ministries coming out to defend that they were clean, they were following regulations.
Yes.
We've seen DPP, DCI, ESCC coming into force now. They were busy last weekend. And I think we might be winning if we'll keep on with this same spirit. You know, it is unfortunate because we are losing a lot of resources as a country. We are losing a lot of resources. Over 400 billion is a lot to an economy like where we are raising about 1.5 trillion with a deficit of over 500 billion every year.
Yes.
And with a lot of loans. If we don't cap corruption, then we'll collapse our economy. It is very unfortunate that there are so many loopholes in where people are taking advantage.
Yes.
to loot, from tax evasion to people taking advantage of the conditions where every contract has a variation of about 25%.
Yes.
It is no longer a condition. You know, there are laid down regulations on how to variate contracts. But at the moment, it is the order of the day. It is like law to make a variation of a maximum of 25%. And that is one of the ways that we are losing a lot of resources. I think those are two main ways we are losing. And tax evasion.
And tax evasion.
From the customs, where people are avoiding to pay tax. They declare wrong goods. Like you import sugar, then you say you're importing different, the cargo is different from what you have declared. Most of the consignments are different from what the consignees are declaring. So it is very unfortunate.
All right. Let's hear from Dr. Eseli. We want also to train our focus today and see what is truly bedeviling this country when it comes to sugar cartels. And we've seen so many faces coming to the fore claiming, oh, it is not me. Brainstorming is ongoing amongst also the cabinet secretary as well. What is your input this morning?
I think what is that when the window for importation of sugar was left wide open, then criminal elements also benefited from it. And I've always said that Kenya is one huge criminal enterprise. And what everybody tries to do is to find their niche in that criminal enterprise. Because unless we change our ways, be it even clothing being imported, everything being imported, there's always some dealings under the table. And unless we get out of that habit, we are heading nowhere. It's reached up to a point where even when you want any service, somebody expects you to give kitu kidogo before you get any service. I think that that kind of situation for a country is not sustainable. And if we don't actually re-look at our ways vis-a-vis the issue of corruption,
yes,
then we are going to end up in a very bad state, because we are leaking. Okay, the estimates are about a third of the budget is virtually lost, but in my estimate it could be even more than half, because when you look at the budgets and you look at what they call the recurrent vote, that's where the devil is. Because when you look at the recurrent vote, apart from salaries, you still find it padded with things like administration and what have you as a recurrent part of the recurrent vote. So I think it's something that we need to nip in the bud before it becomes now the culture, because it's slowly becoming the culture of Kenyans, and we need to stop it. Because if we don't, because remember, even elections are not trusted. Nothing is trusted, you know. That's why I'm calling Kenya a huge criminal enterprise. It's not out of just fun, but when you really look at it, there's a lot of criminal activity almost in every transaction in life in this country. And that's where the problem is. We need to do something. I think what we need to do is, apart from looking for headlines, we need to seriously tackle the matter of corruption. Like when you look at now the sugar saga,
yes,
you'll find people are using it to fight others over the sugar saga. And the people I pity most are my people in Western Kenya, because Western Kenya, the economy is based on sugar, and you find that the two major companies that will be producing sugar, parastatals that will be producing sugar, Mumias and Zoya, are virtually on their knees.
Yes.
So the only ones that are functioning are the private companies like West Kenya Sugar and Butali Sugar. And by the way, I must declare my interest, because West Kenya Sugar is also building a sugar factory in my constituency. Even at the moment, I think they are employing well over 1,000 people in on the construction site. So I must declare my interest that, of course, I lobbied to have that factory built there. And you find when others go and say West Kenya should be closed down, I don't know that we really consider the fallout from that. Already Mumias is down, Zoya is starting to lay off people. So once you close those ones down, then the economy will be completely wiped out. And as we speak, Western has got one of the highest poverty levels in this country. If such a crash came to happen, it would be a disaster of monumental proportions. So I think more objective analysis of what went on is important, because if we use politics to actually tackle the matter of sugar, because if you found that the Minister of the Treasury admitted that he actually allowed a blanket importation where even my little briefcase company would have imported sugar with no controls. So we should actually trace where the problem is and deal with that. Yeah.
Right. Of course, also we saw as a little company like Keter was given that particular, leeway to import 13 kilograms of sugar, right, from Brazil as well. Yeah. Let's hear from Kimani Wamatangi. Good morning.
Morning, Debarl. And let me also say good morning to our viewers. Yes, last week, you remember we had this discussion here extensively about, especially about this sugar sector. And Debarl, let me acknowledge the first major mistake, and we would not have expected anything to happen differently than the way it has happened. If the parameter that is set is calculate the consumption of sugar nationally, then position it with how much is produced locally, see the difference, and that is the amount you allow to import. Then what would one expect to do in a venture like that? Then the only way forward to let people make the money they want to make is to kill the industries. I mean, sabotage them in any way possible. I mean, because the wider the deficit of locally produced sugar, the more import you have. And so it is first, no wonder, it should not surprise anyone that most of those millers in the Western Belt are not working. That's why sugar is manufactured. And if still that becomes the policy, that calculate how much we produce, work out the difference, let anybody import. I mean, you've seen like in today's press that even some of the sugar was discovered in a flower company, I mean, one that basically exports flowers, then that tells you that this game is open. You heard some of the pleadings of one of the cabinet secretaries saying that some of the sugar was even being transported like sand. You know, I would be surprised if flour companies then were importing sugar. Then it would also follow, maybe even cement manufacturing companies also. I mean, because anyway, anybody with a trade license and a limited liability company would be allowed to import sugar. Then, definitely, you know, many people must have abused that. I would say this, that one, if we want to get it right, and this is where the Kenya Bureau of Standards comes directly on the spotlight for having, I think let down Kenyans in a very big way, in an extremely big way, because first setting the standards, either one to determine who is pre-qualified, who is allowed to import sugar, is an extremely important part of the control. Two, then also setting the conditions upon which even those that are licensed, either transport, package, or dispose of that sugar is another part of it. Then three, also the Treasury, in having opened the doors wide open, also absolutely let down Kenyans. The way it should be is just like other millers. Look at, although it's also abused, for example, like in the maize milling or in the maize subsector, but to be licensed properly by government, you have to be a miller. That is the only way that sugar importation would be under control in this country. As long as the policy remains the way it is, as long as, and we all know that probably 3/4 of Kenyans consume sugar. So the quickest commodity, Debarl, one can be able to sell and make a quick shilling out of a sugar, or probably maize meal then next. So if that be the commodity that is left in such a free market, whereby, or rather in such a free way, where there are no rules, then abuse is likely, is definitely going to continue to happen. If we want to get rid of this thing, the controls must be there, but beginning now, the people who are culpable must be brought not only to book, but also to bear, such that this war onwards then can start to make sense. That finally there are consequences to such failings or such misdeeds or breaking the law. That way, then people will start to see that the system has got teeth to bite, and when they are called to that high call, then they'll stand up to be counted. That's the only way it would work.
But can we peel back the layers? Because there's a lot of, layered blame storming on this. There's a lot of, confusion on this. Is it laced? Is it not laced with heavy metals? What is the genesis of a sugar story here in Kenya? Because even me, everything is going way over my head. And as I know of many Kenyans as well, right? I'm actually confused. We can't follow the tail and the head of the story. There's so many things. And so we're mixed up, right? Yeah. So I'm seated here and I'm wondering, how can we now really have a very limpid discussion on what is really ailing the sugar sector here in the country. For the longest time we've known our sugar factories are going down and we don't really understand what is the story. We hear, oh, maybe it is a cane poaching that is happening, or we hear is the importation that is happening, or we hear the cartels who are actually scattering the whole system. They want to bring imports in the country. We hear the people two of them in this country who manage actually the sugar importation in the country, right? So who are these faces? Because every Kenyan needs to know this morning. Yeah, sugar is a staple, of course, in many of our houses. That we use it to bake, to drink our tea. So many things are used up. But if also the public health is right now under threat because people are undermining the system, they're gaming the system. If there's a window of opportunity, you take that advantage. Even the China and Roads Bridge Company, which is meant to be building roads in the country, is importing sugar. Then we wonder what is really happening? What is the Chinese doing? Who is come to construct roads here doing importing sugar in the country? Let's just begin from there, because this is the story I want us to talk about today. So we get to understand what is the genesis of this and where are we headed. Let's just begin from Boni Khalwale, then we'll come to you guys.
Just like my brother Eseli began, like, I would like to declare my interest in this particular crisis. And my interest is as follows. There is a deliberate attempt to close factories in the country that do milling, for a reason that has got nothing to do with milling, for a reason that people are fighting over import licenses and importation of sugar. I defend the factories because, in my case, 35,000 people in Kakamega are employed by West Kenya. West Kenya serves 60,000 small-scale farmers in Kakamega. Butali Sugar employs 1,000 farmers in Kakamega. Employs 1,000 youth in Kakamega, and it serves 40,000 small-scale farmers. I am going to, on this program, be defending those sugar factories, and I'm against any attempt to close any factory. My second point is how we miss Parliament, not in terms of us being there, but in terms of the quality that should come from there. Once upon a time, we had a man called Gorsungu, another one called Olwenyi, another one called Jakoyo Midiwo, another one called Soita Shitanda, another one called Professor Nyang' Nyong'o, and another one called Dr. Boni Khalwale. From the year 2002, we are the ones who stabilized the sugar industry in this country. Our chairman, we had a group called the Sugar Belt Members of Parliament. Our chairman was Honorable Olwenyi. Ayecho Olwenyi. And we would not allow the kind of nonsense that you see going on now. Two things. The first one is, how on earth would Parliament have sat down, kept quiet, and not by now have invited a criminal called Henry Rotich for this particular cassette notice? Rotich deliberately created a password, which he gave, an ATM password, which he gave in everybody and anybody who was interested. In this cassette notice, he deliberately said that sugar imports be done by any person with effect from 31st of August 2017. And he went on, because he was being cautious. When he went to milk, he said milk powder to be imported only by milk processors. So if he didn't know what he was doing, how come he protected the dairy factory, dairy industry, but created a password to abuse the sugar industry? Henry Rotich, just like Ongwae, should be one of the people who are now being charged for this particular offense. My third point is that people will ask, if you're saying Henry Rotich be arrested, what law has he broken? He has broken something cardinal. The backbone of running government is something called financial regulations and procedures of the due process. He has abused that. He should be charged. If they don't want to charge him, he should be sacked. He's the wrong person in that job. My next point is, why the outcry? The outcry is because of the statement by Minister Matiang'i that there is mercury and other heavy metals in our sugar. It is very difficult for me to agree with the Honorable Kimunya, but I think on this one he's right. He has said that Matiang'i is an activist minister. I think he is. Matiang'i, for information, the scare you have caused in the country should remind you, and I know you are a very well-read man, of what happened in the US during 9/11. After the US was bombed and the president was woken up, he was told New York has now been paralyzed. The metropolitan transport is paralyzed. And the first thing he did was that he said, you must make sure that the transport starts moving to remove the panic. In the same manner, Matiang'i, when he heard of this thing of lessing of our sugar by heavy metals, he should not have contributed to the panic. He should quickly have said, before any further official releases are made, invite the institutions that are responsible for the due process, namely KEPS, CID, and other institutions that are involved in quality assurance. Instead of doing that, he behaved like an activist and went public on a matter that is yet to be proven, which ties in with the issue of the password that I've talked about from Rotich. Rotich, by allowing anybody who cared to import without a license, he in the end created a situation whereby people are queuing on an M-Pesa, not M-Pesa, on an ATM machine there on the streets, and they discover that the password for removing money is just one, and which is contained by everybody. Nobody is going to stop. The queue will continue. People will continue keying in to get the money. That is where now you find that every Tom, Dick, and Harry has been importing sugar. Who should import sugar? Sugar should be imported, in my view, and I want to be quoted again and again, by the sugar factories. Because the sugar factories are the ones that understand the deficit. Kenya always has a deficit in the sugar it produces. So, West Kenya, Sony, Butali, Mumias, and Nzuga should be allowed to bridge the gap and not compete with briefcase companies, which include, dear Kenyans, briefcase companies belonging to members of parliament. It is not by accident.
But from also the readings that we get and the information that we have is also these particular sugar factories have been colluding with these shadow companies as well in importation.
Yes,
yes.
If somebody gave us...
Yes, they have the license, but still also they are colluding with some, culprits here within the system, and they are gaming the system using this particular sugar factory. So how can we even trust them if they are given that particular license and they abuse the license?
They say in English that if you want to kill a dog, first give it a bad name. So what you are hearing about the factories, for example, West Kenya, that it should be closed because of licensing, they are giving him a bad name. There is, Kenyans, absolutely nothing wrong with a sugar factory importing sugar so long as it is attempting to meet the deficit. The person who knows the deficit is a man called the Agriculture and Food Authority, AFA. It then says the sugar companies which have got leadership to be allowed to import sugar pro rata. By pro rata I mean, if you produce 15% of the total amount of sugar in the country, you are allowed to import 15% of the deficit. That is what is supposed to be done to be regulated. But instead of AFA doing that, they just gave a password. And sugar has flooded the market.
All right, let's say from Jakoyo Midiwo.
Well, Debarl, I find something very interesting. Yesterday, I was watching, I think, the Parliamentary Committee on Agriculture. I saw MPs trying to stop government officials from testifying under oath. And I saw how sweet sugar is. Because if MPs can protect people from testifying and stop people from testifying, I saw Honorable Kanini Kega under a lot of duress trying to convince MPs that these people must come and speak the truth. And the only way you are sure they can live by what they have said is if you oath them. That's why people take oath. It showed me, I mean, when I listened to some MPs, I have watched this sugar debate, I've listened to some MPs in those committees, and I've seen there's an attempt to protect criminals. Parliament is culpable. I have now listened on this panel to Dr. Eseli and Khalwale. Who is West Kenya? if illicit sugar is found in your go down, you are a criminal. If you cannot say that they employ lawyers as though factories are only in Western Kenya. I come from Nyanza. There are more sugar factories in Nyanza than than Luyaland. There are more in Nyanza. But what am I saying? You cannot say that this, you can't call Rai West Kenya. There's a problem. You can't talk about West Kenya without talking about Webuye Pan paper and the theft involved in it. You cannot say it employs your people and at the same time say your people are poor because of sugar. We have a problem. And gentlemen, we have a duty. All of us here, this country has invested in us. And I'm grateful that Boni thinks we have served while we are investing. Even now, some of us who are in retirement, the taxpayer is still investing in it. What is important is for us to speak the truth. How do we deal with a criminal pronouncement or declaration like that the minister has done? In other countries, if you do what Rotich has done, you would go to jail and the trial will be so swift. He cannot say anybody can import sugar. What he was doing, he was creating a criminal opportunity. You know, Debarl, the sugar that should be imported in this country is called industrial sugar. Because we don't have anybody producing it, it is Kibos Sugar now trying to put up a machine and begin to produce industrial sugar. It is what you use to make Coca-Cola, to make those. It is not a final product. It is used to make other products. That is, and we are allowed by law. Ever since I went to Parliament, it's only 400,000 metric tons. That is why and you are licensed to import it because of what it is used for. So not just anybody can import it.
Yes.
Now, I agree to take away the barons from this business. You need to give quotas to the sugar factories. What these sugar factories are doing, and Boni, let me inform you, what they are doing, instead of investing in the people around Mumias, investing in people around Muhoroni, around Soni, what they are doing, they are importing sugar and packaging it using the license that the government has given them. So if you go to their go-downs in Mombasa, they have that is how you end up with Mumias sugar in a package, or West Kenya sugar, or all those things. This whole industry, we cannot come here and begin blaming Matiang'i and all those things. It is said, the sugar was tested, they found mercury in the sugar. You can't blame Matiang'i for it. You cannot. But Rotich is culpable. He doesn't even have that power to gazette that anybody can produce sugar. It is the sugar barons who have influenced it. In fact, Debarl, I watched your show yesterday morning, and one of your panelists said, I think it was Professor Nyong'o, that all those factories, all those companies, you can narrow them down to 3 or 4, 5 companies. And that is a fact. Because the business of importation of sugar is a multi-billion shilling business, not ordinary people. Keter can't have 1 billion shillings. Keter can't have 100 million shillings. He can't do it. This sugar that they purport, you know, when I was in Parliament, we even found sugar from Dubai. Dubai is a desert. These people, I think, if you can charge anybody with murder, begin with Rotich. What he has done there is murderous. Terrible. That is murderous. And
so the question is, was there no consultation when Rotich was actually coming up with this particular?
No, he didn't.
Because we know also what the country was going through.
Testify.
Yeah. Was there any consultation with the Kenya Sugar, Manufacturers Association, led by Mr. Rai and other players, stakeholders within the industry, right? Was there any? Did he just take, of course, the liberty to come up with this regulation by himself.
You know what they have done, Debarl? That so-called sugar manufacturers, those are the most culpable people in this trade. Remember, another time there used to be that you would go to Kenya Sugar Board. The government deliberately got rid of Kenya Sugar Board. And that without Kenya Sugar Board, the powers go to the minister. You know, so what he has done, in consultation with those people, they don't have to go to anybody. That's why he's saying anybody can import. Anybody can import. And anybody, it's these criminals. These people are known.
All right. These people are known. Do you know them? We want to know these people. At least it will really help so that we know where we're headed. Let's hear from Keter, then we'll come to you. We'll take a short break.
Thank you so much, Debarl. You know, listening to my colleagues and my friends discussing about this issue, in my view, this is a very complex situation. It is not very easy. And taking this debate and trying to clear or exonerate some individuals, I think it is very wrong. You see, it shows a collapsed system from production level. When you see, you know, most of these declarations that we have less of sugar in the country than you need to import, that is where the problem starts. It is a creation. We create the shortage that we lack some metric tons. Mm-hmm. And then we sabotage the production.
It is an artificial creation.
It is in most cases. Mm-hmm. It is very artificial. Then we sabotage the farmers. You know, every country protects the production,
yes,
and the farmers. But in Kenya, what is happening, because I also represent farmers who supply Chemelil and many other, including West Kenya, because they have in Tinderet, in Nandi, they have a collection point. I want to say that it is very unfortunate, because what we are reading from the sugar is apart from the creation, the artificial shortage, mm-hmm, what we are also seeing from the importation, there is a lot of corruption in it, mm-hmm, from where individuals choose to say we have a shortage because they want to benefit. And then people come now and give gazette notices to say we need to import. You create a window of 3 months. The individuals who will import again will not follow the law, the regulations that are in place. And to me, this is a failure of all the systems, because including, I've noticed that some of our brothers here want to clear Matiang's name. You see, not all the sugar came through Mombasa port. Our borders are porous. There are many other border stations that are not manned, and you cannot say all these poisonous sugar or the illegal sugar were from Mombasa port or Malaba and other. They could have come from many other. We have about 44 stations that are not manned. 44 in total, and some are not designated land border entry points, and some are not manned. It is a multi-agency approach. Mm. You have to have the KEBS to inspect the sugar from the country of origin, where they have to give a clean bill of health before you import. In most cases, someone gets a license to import. Within 1 week, he is already has a clearance to import. Within another 1 week, he is already in Mombasa trying to clear the same sugar. Within the same 2 days or 3 days, the sugar is in the depots or warehouses. So what I want to say, Debarl, to me, this is opening an avenue for us to have a better discussion, because we are in a complex. I saw members of the cabinet yesterday trying to really defend themselves. And what I realized, it is unfortunate that it is grumbling. The most cabinet secretaries were confused. They were panicking. Some were started blame games, saying that they were trying to clear their names whilst blaming others. So there is lack of coordination, even among the cabinet secretaries. So that there is no, most of them, to me, I think they are not in charge of they are not running their ministries very well. They are not in control.
Thank you.
So that they are panicking. They are not in, in a position.
Welcome back. You're watching People and Politics here on AM Live. We continue with the conversation at pace. I'm holding court this morning with Boni Khalwale, who is the Deputy Chair of Ford Kenya, also the former Senator of Kakamega. Also, we have the General Secretary of Ford Kenya as well, and Member of Parliament from Tongaren, that is Dr. Eseli Simiyu. We do have with us Jakoyo Midiwo, who is the former Deputy Leader of the National Assembly, that is the 11th National Assembly. Also Alfred Keter, Member of Parliament from Nandi Hills, and also Senator Kimani Wamatangi from Kiambu as well. So we promised when we circle back that we'll hear from Wamatangi. Let's just go sequentially. We'll hear from him, then we'll come to you guys. Wamatangi, briefly.
Yes, Debarl, there's a question there that you had asked that I think was very important to have to answer. You asked this. How comes that even when the sugar manufacturers themselves were allowed and licensed to be the ones only importing, why is it still that they themselves ended up in this game? And I would say this, Debarl. One, we should acknowledge that is where we started from. Originally, the only licensed importers of sugar were millers. That's what before we came to this free fall. But the question you'd be asking yourself is, did it work? Did it bring value and benefit to farmers the way it was intended to, and also to bring sobriety and normalcy in the sugar industry?
Yes.
And the answer is no, it did not. Why? One, remember, there was a time the local sugar millers themselves went on a flurry in the entire country, including in the press, trying to detail and expose how expensive and costly it is for them to produce sugar locally. And I remember reading a long story from one of the sugar millers, trying to detail the reasons and excuses, some of them, how and why they can't afford to produce sugar competitively at competitive prices and at the same time pay farmers. And this had emanated from the discussion why are sugarcane farmers crying all over the country then that they could not be paid. And they could not pay them. See, it is a reality that sugar produced by other countries, for example, like in Ethiopia, even in Sudan, other countries like Brazil, is cheaper than locally produced sugar. That's a fact. And so even when the factories themselves had it to themselves, without the free fall, without the free importance, they couldn't do it, because once they do their arithmetic and find that it is cheaper for them to import, come and make more profits, some of their own controllers, some of their own bosses became sugar importers themselves. And they decided to beat the system. And besides that, which managing director will be employed either in Sony Sugar or in Miwani or even in Mumias to sit there knowing that once you import the sugar, you make more returns on your book than when you produce locally. And probably this is why you would be asking, why, for example, was there an absence of a regulator, knowing that is a fundamental inclusion in having that equation work right? And the dissolution, for example, of the Kenya Sugar Board, then, which was the regulator, would send anyone looking over their shoulders and around themselves to ask, why was it done? The argument then was that it has become a hegemony, that a few individuals within that board became beneficiaries and billionaires because they would be issuing those licenses at very high prices or high cost. They would be bribed. But did that remedy the situation? It made it worse. Because now it is taken up there, then it becomes a free-for-all. So in my view, if you asked me, what would be and what is supposed to be the right answer on behalf of the people of Kenya, on behalf of millers and sugarcane farmers? The answer is simple. You know, and as I said last year, we must have a clear mind and a clear policy as government as to, do we intend, that's the first question, do we intend to normalize, to ensure that the beneficiary at the end of this process is the farmer and the local economy? Because ask yourself, Debarl, how is it that Ethiopia and other countries are able to produce sugar competently that we cannot? And see, they have just been able to employ basic economies of scale. Now, lastly, Debarl, see, if producing sugar locally is expensive, why hasn't there been policy? And that's my question all the time. Why isn't there has been an intentional policy and move, one, to ensure that you address issues like fertilizer, which farmers use, that you can be able to encourage and innovate with factories at policy level, such that they can produce other byproducts. For example, remember when there was a lot of talk of production of ethanol and purchased by government itself, such that that becomes a byproduct, or one of the products, which is actually marketed and bought by government and used by government in other areas, such that sugar almost becomes a byproduct. And then at that point, you would say the cane farmer becomes a beneficiary. Now, you see, once there are such interceptions and interventions, I believe that would address the whole thing. As long as you leave it for people to make capital gains, as long as it is open that people will be making profits, then this cannot die. Right. It's a beneficial loop for any person who wants to make quick money.
Right. Let's say from Eseli.
Well, first I would say that whenever Obama is about to come to this country, there's a big fight against corruption. Once Obama comes and goes, the fight ends. I hope this is not because Obama is about to visit. I hope this is not again another window dressing for him. However, when you look at the history of sugar worldwide, it's got a terrible, terrible history. In fact, sugar was the driver of the slave trade in the Caribbean. So sugar has got a terrible history, and if as a country we want to control it, we need to be very firm how we control it, given the history of sugar. That is, the costs are high, and you know, it's something that everybody uses, so it's a high use commodity. So we need to be very, very firm on how we control it, and especially in Kenya, where sugar is also related to elections. Even this particular saga we are talking about, I think it's related to the August elections. So we need to be very firm how we handle sugar. The biggest mistake we did was to come up with this animal called AFA. By collapsing the sugar board, even now the Coffee Research Institute is now called, it used to be Coffee Research Foundation, now it's called Coffee Research Institute. You know, by creating AFA, there is even no money for research in the Coffee Institute. And yet we are trying to increase coffee output. So this alpha animal is bad. We need to disband it, go back to the single entities that were there. And I'm seeing there's even a move now to merge ADC, AFC, and another agricultural corporation. I think this thing of merging these things into huge animals is going to bite us. Through AFA. Because AFA, as matters stand now, if the sugar board had been functional, remember the sugar board also we had what we call sugar development levy.
For the benefit of the viewers who don't know what AFA is, the Agricultural Fisheries and
Agricultural Food Authority.
Food Authority.
Yeah. Now, you know, we are trying to make things like the US, but the US culture is very different from our culture. So I think we need to start running away from that. Because remember now, if the coffee board had been there, even if they were also dealing in corruption, but you would have had an easier way of controlling these imports.
Yes.
Yes, the sugar companies have been allowed to import. Some of them have gone wrong, like what Sony did. Sony also imported a lot of sugar, but it never landed it at Sony. It was bagged and taken off from Mombasa.
Yes.
And Sony just got a few hundred millions, and that was it. At least they had money to operate. One of the reasons of the failure of the sugar industry in this country is not just because of the importation. One major factor is mismanagement, and that one I laid plain at the feet of the government, because they are the ones who appoint the MDs, they are the ones who appoint the directors of these sugar companies. They appoint incompetence as political reward, and that ends up crashing our industries. Like what's happening to Zoya. Zoya is collapsing purely because the last group of management and the directors were political operatives who had no clue about running a sugar factory, running a company for any matter. Now look at the way we've come up with saying that there's mercury, there's lead, there's copper. I remember when I was here last week, I told you my knowledge of organic chemistry, I don't see how mercury can be in sugar. Just by the knowledge of organic chemistry, it's not possible. When you look at lead, if lead were contaminating sugar in good enough quantities and exposed to the atmosphere, it will turn black. You know, some of these things we are saying, and for once I'm agreeing with Kimunya, we should be careful what we say, because some of these things, we need to be reasonable. I mean, there should be some science behind it. So yes, copper could be there. That's a fact. But when you look at the organic chemistry of the whole matter, you know, we are throwing things around, and in the process, one, panicking the Kenyans and damaging our economy also. And then finally, I guess people like China, roads and bridges, imported sugar to sweeten up the SGR.
Did you find that interesting? Yeah. Okay, let's hear from Boni Khalwale.
I think it is incumbent upon this panel, I hope, if they agree with me, that we persuade Kenyans to understand why it is important that only millers should be the ones allowed to import. The reason is this: the sugar that is imported, which, as Honorable Alfred has said, is actually cleared at the port of origin, is not fit for human consumption. When it lands into the country, the importer is supposed to take it to the factory for further processing before he releases in the market. So now, when factories who have the facilities are allowed to import, then the second line of processing, they do it, then they can sell. I can give you, for example, on authority, a photograph taken at a boat of two companies. This is from Eseli.
Okay, let's just see it. Yeah.
Yes. This is from Eseli.
Yes.
Go down.
Could we just zoom it? We see.
Yeah, zoom it. Yes. And this one is from West Kenya, which they have given a dog, they have given a bad name. This one, the one written not for sale. So what West Kenya did is that when the sugar arrived, in accordance to the due process, they packed and labeled it not for sale because it had to go to the factory for further processing. The right thing that they did. Now, this other one from Eseli, which for purposes of my assumption did not even come through the proper door, it was a question of marking. If you notice, the sugar is produced raw in Brazil, but when it is packaged in India. So this is just a canny bag that is brought, labeled, and they put in when they know that what they are doing is actually sugar from Kismayu, which has ended up in Eseli. So we must emphasize that it's only factories that are able to do the second layer of processing, i.e. ensure that the impurities that might be inside are clear.
All right. Okay.
No, you can't. It is very important.
Now,
the issue, I'll give you, the issue of mercury. I am a doctor of medicine, and to do medicine you have to actually convince the country that you're good in chemistry, and I'm glad my brother is here. Mercury can only cause poisoning if it is in the form of something called methyl mercury. Mercury, the heavy metal, cannot be absorbed by the gastrointestinal system. It is like if you swallowed a coin, Debarl. If you swallowed a coin, it is not absorbed. It goes through the GI and out. Similarly, mercury, if you swallow it, almost 100% will go in and out. However, it poisons by being converted into something called methyl mercury. Methyl mercury, Kenyans, is found in fish. If you eat fish, which is able to convert mercury into something called methyl mercury, then it poisons you. Very quickly, allow me to respond to my brother Jakoyo. Jakoyo, I think you're starting to live in history. When you say, you talk about sugar factories in Nyanza, they are not there. They are all moribund. They are not working. In fact, the only sugar factory working in Nyanza is Sukari factory, again belonging to Rai group of companies. Similarly, in Western Province, Mumiasi and Nzoia have collapsed. The factory only working is Votari Sugar and West Kenya. So if we say we deny Votari Sugar, West Kenya, Sukari Sugar an opportunity to import, you are therefore saying that individuals who are not able to process imported sugar will now be the ones selling. Look, when they attempted to use Sony, because they were sugar barons, they imported sugar worth 2.5 billion shillings and took to Sony. That sugar never arrived in Sony. Instead, it was packaged at the port of entry and sold.
But was Sony complicit to this?
I don't know.
Because it was used from the information we have. So we cannot exonerate one factory, and they were used as a conduit to actually do that as well, right?
Well, I don't know about them.
Okay.
Let me also add one more factory which is functioning. It's called Kibosh Sugar. That is also functioning.
It's private, isn't it?
It's very private.
Kibosh is private.
Let me tell you this. Why would West Kenya import sugar? I thought West Kenya has a cardinal duty to grow sugar using Western Kenya farmers. It is importing to kill Mumias. It is importing to kill Sony. It is importing to kill Muhoroni, and they are all dead. Chemelil is dead. Because once you flood the market,
kill a dead man.
Yes, in this case, our people are being killed by the sugar importers. Let me just tell you. As a public servant, which Dr. Simiyu is now, and Keter and Wamatangi, for us, we are retired public servants, me and Boni. But the public, we live on public support, public taxpayer support. We owe it to our people, not to the sugar factories. What you see here is what I call sweet sugar. What you see here is what I call sweet sugar. And I told you, I watched MPs stopping public servants from coming clean under oath. I saw it yesterday. What Boni is saying, without talking about privatization, and the people who are importing this sugar are doing it because they want to flood the market and completely kill the person Boni is calling a dead man, so that they can acquire them. There is an attempt. I went to court, Debarl, to stop the government from privatizing sugar factories before what we would call asset transfer to the counties. The sugar people, the so-called sugar importers, the factories there, because some of them spoke to me, and they had so much interest in that case. Some tried to convince me to withdraw the case. And I want to say here, I was very disappointed when Professor Anyang' Nyong'o was here yesterday and did not talk about our court case, me and him, because we went to court together. If you read the ruling, which our case was, our case was put together with the one from Council of Governors. Our case was not even mentioned. The government does not want what is called asset transfer. They want Rotich to be the one to sit with these crooks to steal from the Kenyan public. And I want to plead with the two gentlemen from sugar growing area, like I am, to let us talk about privatization. Let us protect these companies, however moribund they are. They may well go into private hands. But remember, about 3 years ago, the government forced us to pass a supplementary budget. And MPs from Western Kenya were very happy that 3 billion shillings was being taken to Mumias. I said, I am going to support. I remember my friend Ababu Namamba was so excited. He was taking the president and his deputy to Kakamega. I said, if you really want to help the lawyer who is owed by Mumias, put the money in some bank, Equity Bank, and let everybody go with their claim to the bank and be paid. To date, the poor farmer in Mumias has not been paid. You cannot then say that because Mumias is dead, it is okay for the miller to import. The miller has a cardinal duty to the farmer. Let us produce. The whole idea about importation was that we do not produce industrial sugar.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right, thank you. I just wanted to play, unless you have, to just play a clip that we have this morning, of course, of the blame storming that is going on between some of these sugar industry players as well. Let's just listen in to what also we heard from Arai, who is the chairman of Kenya Sugar Manufacturers Association.
It is in Nakuru Blankets, go down. It is in JB Minor go downs in Mombasa. It is in Riply and Team Cells in Nairobi. It is in Sukari Industries in Diwa. So my question I'm asking is, why are we chasing few wholesalers who don't import sugar, parade them in front of the media, and you are not going to these said go downs?
Sisi kama wabunge tunaenda kutafuta huyu mtu anaitwa Rai. Na tukiingia kwake kama hatupi majibu sahihi, yeye na kiwanda yake lazima tuifunge.
I need to clarify that there is not 1 kilo of contraband sugar I have imported. Whatever quantities I have imported, and I agree what Honorable Dwali has accused me of, 186,000 tons. We have imported. We have imported it legally, following all due process according to the law of Kenya. If you remember last year, there was a severe shortage of sugar, of maize and milk. And the government allowed the importation according to this Kenya Gazette of 13th May.
Under what circumstance were this Gazette notice given? Was the East Africa Council of Ministers for Finance, were they consulted? Because the Minister for Finance of Kenya cannot give a tax exempt to certain commodities without consulting his East Africa partner states colleagues.
So we didn't gazette companies. So it was for any company to import. So I'm here to know what the problem is.
I have nothing to hide. They have come to me as one of the importers. We have given them each and every document we have. They have taken samples. The question is, why is only my name being splashed all over? And yet, there are hundreds of importers who have imported sugar last year.
All right, so we do have a skunk in our hands. The question is how do we now clean our hands out of this? Of course, it will be reeking. There's actually rot in the sugar industry right now. Let's just also be just closing on it, and we move on to another subject as well. Let's hear from Alfred, Keter.
You see, Debarl, and I talked about it. The first question that we must ask ourselves is whether there is real shortage. It is artificial. That is the reason why 7 months down the line, we still have the same sugar in warehouses in various towns in this country. I think we must, there are two things here that are coming on board. One is that people create the shortage, the artificial shortage, to incur benefit. Number two, even if we were to say we have a problem with the shortage, what are the laid down regulations? Are they followed? No. There are so many agencies, and that's why I said it is a multi-agency approach. You cannot have poisoners in Kenya because the process is tedious. There are many regulations, but people don't follow the regulations. This same sugar where you are alleging now there is lead, there is copper, there is mercury, were inspected at the country of origin. They were cleared by who? The cartels. The customs are involved, the shippers are involved, the Kenya Revenue are involved, KEPs are involved, the interior, Ministry of Interior, the police. Because I've said this, in most cases, most of these illegal goods getting into the country don't come through the main port of entry. Mm-hmm. It gets through the many porous border points that are not manned well. Because I've said, and I want to repeat that in Kenya, it is high time we need to check around our borders to ascertain whether all the borders are manned well. They have KRA officials, they have KEPS officials, they have KEFIs, because there is even KEFIs, which normally it is another organ that really checks on the standards. And then I've talked about Kenya Revenue and police. They must be manned. Mm-hmm. When I was in the 11th Parliament with my colleagues, Honorable Eseli and of course in the National Assembly and Jakoyo, I remember we did an investigation about fertilizer. Yes. Which was said to be fake. What we realized, because we went to Lunga Lunga and we talked to those the locals in Lunga Lunga in Kwale County, most of them told us that there are many other porous borders, entry points within the borderline of Tanzania and Kenya. So some of these products are getting in through different countries, yes, using the porous borders to get into the market. And that is why I'm saying, in my view, this is a very complex matter. It's a complex matter. That we cannot take it lightly. Let all the investigative authorities be in charge and start rolling so that we get to the bottom of it. Yeah. Kenyans are scared. They are no longer using sugar.
Let's close it with Kimani Wamatangi briefly.
Yes, Debarl, I just wanted to so that Kenyans can understand clearly, you know, what's the mischief in this whole sugar debate? You know, in the licensed or allowed importation of that deficit of sugar, we have three categories of sugar. One, there is the raw sugar, which is what millers are allowed to import. Then we have the category of what is defined as industrial sugar, and then refined sugar. And the mischief, why now we are having the scenario we have is because the licensed importers who are supposed to import raw sugar to be able to mix and process with what they are producing locally, for them to be able to bridge that gap and make it commercially viable and profitable. Having failed to do that and declaring that deficit now opens the floodgates for importers to import now not raw sugar, but refined sugar and industrial sugar, which they take directly to the marketplace. And that is why you hear about these other definitions here, about what you're hearing about contraband sugar, there is illegal sugar, there is poisonous sugar, and fake sugar. So Kenyans must really get to understand the whole of this, because you see while you understand this term contraband, but illegal, poisonous, and of course it is also important for us to clear to the minds of our viewers that there is no factory in the world that is either put up or set up to produce poisonous sugar. Nowhere in the world. So it is within the process. and the illegality of importing the wrong commodity to take to the wrong end user. That's a whole story, such that you find that somebody will have imported sugar that is intended to go to the factory for processing and then takes it to the shelves. I mean, it is important for Kenyans, such that when we are calling people to account and hold them to account and ask who should be culpable, because most of the culprits are hiding behind this terminology that you see, me, I have no illegal sugar. Others are saying, me, I have no contraband sugar. Others will be saying that my sugar has no mercury. I mean, but that is not the gist of the issue. It's not the gist of the misdeeds and the crime. The crime is that when the sugar factories failed to live up to what they're supposed to do and import this raw sugar, and then the floodgates were open, briefcase importers, illegal importers, went to the sources outside this country and went and imported sugar they are not supposed to import. Because even if, and I would highly doubt, we would need to scrutinize that Gazette notice, even if you opened the lid to allow everybody to import, you cannot again take it lower and say that you can import everything, including importing refined sugar. The importation on refined sugar was never allowed, even under that blanket allowance. You know, you can import 1 million of you, but import industrial, you import raw sugar.
Right, thank you.
But not industrial, neither refined. All right, that was the whole story.
Okay, reactions also from Twitter, where I can see the rush of tweets also on Twitter. I'll read one or two. We have Evans Ayabna saying, what if the deficit is artificial, where the company just wants to import cheap sugar to capitalize on quick cash with less sweat? That is what he is asking there. Also, Elijah Ogaya is saying, Dr. Khalwale and Dr. Simiyu must not hide behind basic science to discount the contamination theory. Yeah. Also, he's saying, I still can't believe Honorable Khalwale is a defender of sugar importing cartels. Yeah. And also we have Silver in Rainy saying, Kenya has become a safe haven for impunity. The culture of releasing corrupt culprits on bonds and bails of 10 million Kenyan shillings is injustice to the taxpayer. We are creating a culture that will bury what this country ought to stand for. Also we have Bolo Omar saying, last week, didn't he lead a protest in support of some sugar companies owned by Rai? Let's engage intellectually, bro. I am from Kakamega and Boni is not the right guy for us. This is what he's saying. Boni, you need to defend yourself.
I will.
And we have also Bram Shikana saying, from where we sit in Kakamega County, Dr. Khalwale is dining on the same table with Rai. Let him talk about the allegation that he was given 500. I do not know about this, but he will tell us last week by the company. He is selfish and reckless. This could be also your political opponent just trying to, but you are here. You can defend yourself also as well. And we have Dr. Jen Omwenga saying, wish all our leaders were fearless in the fight against corruption like Boni Khalwale. He doesn't fear anyone and brings out issues the way they are. Kudos, Mheshimiwa. Good leaders are never elected. So, Boni, those allegations which are there on Twitter.
I think it is important that...
So you clarify some of his...
yes.
Yeah.
It is important that I make a general statement, namely that in 2008, we fought vicious battles to get Butali Sugar to be operational in Kakamega. Shortly after, the late Honorable Orua Ojode fought and established a Sukari Sugar Company in Diwa. Today, Honorable Eseli is fighting to establish Naitiri Sugar Company in Tongaren, in Bungoma. The end result has been in all these experiences that it has changed the lives of our people for the better. And therefore, on a program like this, it doesn't matter what you call me. It doesn't matter what level of accusations you throw at me. I will, until death, defend factories so that they are not closed. Honorable Soita Shtanda would turn in his grave if he had me on any program that I am saying a factory should be closed in Malaba. More specifically, I want to thank, thanks to Shikanda, if it is a question of me receiving money, how come nobody was talking, people were operating underwater? It's only after I came out and led the people of Kabras in demonstration in defense of West Kenya that the following leaders then have gladly, and I want to thank them, joined me in the defense of the factory. I want to thank Honorable Washiali. I want to thank Senator Malala. I want to thank Honorable Malulu. I want to thank Deputy Governor Professor Kutima, because they have now joined me for us to defend the people's agenda. President Uhuru, if your government has problems in managing the sugar importation in this country, please don't wrap it on my people by closing our factories. Manage importation of sugar, because sugar will for many coming years be imported in this country. The reason being, the local production does not meet the local demand. We have to manage how the deficit is brought in to bridge up that particular requirement.
All right. We are wrapping up on this. Yeah.
This weekend, I was down in Western, and I had a session with the Rai people, the West Kenya Sugar, right, the ones who are even constructing near Naitiri market. And I was very sure after coming from there that actually I was justified to defend them. Anybody talking about bribery, I think is trying to gag us from saying the truth, that we will be fearful that we'll be accused of having been bribed. On my part, if there's been any bribery to me, which I'll accept, and I'll take such a bribe every time, is that jobs have been created for my people. That way, that kind of bribe, I'll take any time. As for the issue of the conspiracy to privatize the public millers, it's true, there could be a conspiracy to privatize the public millers. But what does that tell you? It means that those public millers are potentially profitable. That's why anybody would want to buy them. The reason why we are having problems with them is mismanagement and this cronyism, whereby you appoint incompetence to run those institutions, and that's where we are having that problem with our public companies.
Let me defend the two gentlemen.
Briefly.
I don't think they were bribed. I know Boni. But there's a problem. There's a problem. You know, the issue here is about importation of sugar. In fact, the guy who called for the closure of rice factory was not was an MP from a local MP from their village. What Wamatangi has said, which must be the clarity, that the sugar to be imported is industrial sugar. How it's not refined sugar, it's not the table sugar, it's not table sugar, so that's how it's called. Yes, so now, how does Boni and Dr. Eseli convince the people of Western who are talking, and you must listen to them, how does importation of sugar employ them? How does importation of sugar employ somebody in Sony? The importation of sugar, it is true, Rai is right, that he is not the only one. But the importation of sugar is destroying the local sugar farming. The person hurt here is the farmer, not even the consumer. The consumer, there is enough table sugar.
Thank you.
How does it help Aluya and Mumias if we import sugar?
Thank you.
Yeah.